This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, everybody? Ricky Widmer here, along with the one, the only Brandon Swanson.
Hey.
And we are back for another edition. Well, actually, this week, Brandon, we're back for two editions of the Primetime Podcast. It is double podcast, and this is where, like, you get the ham horns, like the bam, 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 bam. It's double podcast month, or double podcast week, I should say, for the Primetime Podcast. That's how excited I am. I'm saying month instead of week. We got two big boards for you. We got a fast break. We got a NBA one. We got a NFL one. We're going to start with the NBA, though. This is the NBA big board. Make sure to check out our NFL big board as well. Before we get into it, though, a little bit of housekeeping. Number one, got to say thank you to our brand new patron, William. Just got the email yesterday. William will be a patron starting for April and on. Want to thank William and invite him to the Patreon family. How do you become a patron like William? Check the link down below in that description. Also, if you want an MVP t-shirt, that store link also down in the description. MostValuablePodcast.com. That's where you bookmark that. You get everything for MVP. That's where it all posts. The full podcast, the YouTube videos, everything right there at MVP.com. And then last but not least, go ahead on iTunes, Apple Podcasts. Give the Primetime Podcast a 5-star rating. It would mean the world to both Brandon and myself. But Brandon, we're going to get into the NBA big board, the NBA draft. And how we do this is, if you're on YouTube, it's split up into segments. Unless you're after the fact, we put it up in full after the segments have gone out. Blog Talk Radio, you get it all the way through. Brandon, we're going to start with 16 through 25. Start at 25. Give us your first 25 through 16.
All right, so starting things off, I've got Brandon McCoy, forward from UNLV. Raleigh Alkins, guard/forward from Arizona. He's at 24. 23, I've got Shake Milton, guard from SMU that was at 23, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you had the numbers going right up the middle, that'd be so much easier, but you don't. So at 22, I've got Chandler Hutchison, forward from Boise State. At 21, I've got Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, guard from Kentucky. At 20, I've got Zanan Musa, strong forward, international. At 19, I've got Chimezi Matu, forward/center, USC. At 18, I've got Mitchell Robinson, center out of high school in Louisiana. At 17, I've got Daniel Gafford, center out of Arkansas. And then at 16, I've got Miles Bridges, forward, Michigan State.
And that's one we're going to get into. We're going to get into that one a little bit, because when you told me about that, I was shocked that you had Miles Bridges that low. Not really shocked, but kind of shocked that we actually had one of us go that bold to have him this low. But just to get mine before we get into everything, at 25, I got the same one you had. Brandon McCoy, forward out of UNLV. Then Chandler Hutchison, forward out of the Boise State Broncos. Number 23, Shake Milton, the guard out of SMU. Number 22, Anthony Simmons, the guard from high school. Right above him at 21, his high school mate. They're not in high school together. They're just both high schoolers in this draft. Mitchell Robinson, the center. Then at number 20, Kyrie Thomas, the guard from the Creighton Blue Jays. Number 19, Chimezi Matu, the forward/center from USC. Then at 18, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, the guard from Kentucky. Number 17, Zanan Musa, the forward overseas international player. Then at 16, the guard from Alabama, Colin Sexton. So, Brandon, first guy I want to get into, there's two that are right away. People are probably like, what's going on, guys? Why do you got, really it's who we got at 16. Like, why do you got Miles Bridges? Why do you got Colin Sexton so low? We're going to get into both of those guys, but first, I want to start with Miles Bridges. Since you were the one that had him at 16, for me, you guys will have to wait to see where I have Miles Bridges. Let me ask you this, Brandon. Why do you got Miles Bridges so low at 16 on your big board 2.0?
Well, I think, number one, I want to first start off and say that Miles Bridges is probably one of the best athletes that will be available in the draft. One of the best athletes. Mm-hmm. That's not to say that he is possibly the best next level NBA caliber player in this year's draft. So you can be one of the best athletes and still not be the best suited for the NBA. And that's not to necessarily say he's not the best suited for the NBA, but I think you're hopefully understanding what I'm saying here, is that he's extremely talented, but with some of his skills, he is limited to what he might be able to do at the next level. So he is not the best ball handler that we're kind of coming to see. This could certainly limit his playmaking ability and the types of plays that he's able to make, because of that, and be able to make it at kind of the fullest level. Spot up shooter and a straight line driver from the wing. And then you also look at this season, he's struggled creating shots off the dribble. And when you can't do that, you're not only hurting yourself, but I think that you're also kind of hurting what plays can be happening around you. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the reasons. Those are a number of the reasons why I think I have him so low. And then the question that I wanted to ask you is, do you think that his year back to college, instead of coming out last year for the NBA when people had him very high, and really regarded him as one of the best players, could be one of the best players coming out, certainly a top 10, all this stuff. And now in a lot of mock drafts that I've looked at, he's not close to the top 10. Mm-hmm. And certainly in mine, he's not close to the top 10 here. Do you think that him staying in college has played a significant role where teams have been able and scouts have been able to take a closer look? And certainly, I don't think he's having the same season he had last year.
Well, that's exactly the case. And it's not necessarily because you stayed, you're having a worse or better season. It's just when we only get a season on you, and this is a one and done thing in general, when you come in and we only get 1 year on you, we only get 1 year on you. And you kind of have to make a decision off of that, where by staying at college, draft guys and people looking at the draft, analyzing these guys of how they'll be at NBA level, we're getting a second look at you. We're getting also another look at you with a different team that is around you. The one thing that I think of, and this isn't a comparison I'm trying to make, it's just something that I thought of while you were talking about Miles Bridges, was that, remember Denzel Valentine?
Yeah.
Remember how high, not everyone was super high on him, but I loved Denzel Valentine. When he went to the Bulls, I was all over it. I loved him because I'm senior leader, ball handler, he's going to bring good things. Hasn't really been what I thought he would be at the NBA next level. He's not going to be a starter like he is right now because the Bulls are bad. But once the Bulls figured out their team, he would be a bench player, maybe a sixth man at the best, off the bench, for Fred Hoiberg and the Bulls. Whereas, I'm not saying Miles Bridges is going to be that, but I wonder if that plays into it a little bit, with more so seeing him for another year and seeing what they could do. Because, this Michigan State team had not a ton of guys leave last year. They had you had Galvin Schillings on the team. He was a forward. He's gone. He was gone. Alvin Ellis. These are guys last year when Bridges was a freshman who were on the team, no longer there. Van Dyke, Harris, and Carter. So those were the guys. They had quite a few guys leave because of that season. And the big one was Harris. That's 10 points per game that you would find somewhere else from somebody. And Harris being a guard, kind of a similar ball handling style compared to what we're getting now. Or as now when you talk about Michigan State, it's a guy we're going to mention earlier in Jaren Jackson Jr., where he's not handling the ball. He's a 4. He's a guy that you got to feed him the ball. When he has the ball, he can do stuff with it, but you're not having Jaren Jackson bring the ball up. So that's something that kind of, I wouldn't say I question it, but I want to throw this at you then. What you were talking about with the ball handling, the question that I thought into my head, how big of a negative should we have that? Because nowadays in the NBA, it's not like, oh, you're a point guard, you're the one handling the ball. You've got guys like LeBron James, who's a forward, who can handle the ball. Guys like Giannis Antetokounmpo, forward, who can handle the ball. Guys like Ben Simmons, who was drafted not even 2 years ago, a forward 3 that is now going to handle the ball. does Miles Bridges have to be a guy that can handle the ball at the next level to be successful?
Yeah, I think so. Do you consider James Harden to be a point guard?
No, I would say he's a 2. Like, size-wise, maybe not. He's not a point guard. He's definitely not a point guard. I would say he's a 2 that can handle the ball, a 2-3 that can handle the ball.
Okay, because the reason I ask that is because I think most people, especially who are fans of the NBA, saw exactly what he did the other night in that dirty move that he put on whoever. I don't know. They're dead now.
Was that Jamal? Was that the Clippers with Jamal Crawford, where you just put him on skates?
I don't know. This guy sat down. This guy literally
and James Harden James Harden looked at him like, yep. Whatever.
Yeah, not quite sure who it was, but I think that, not to say that every player needs to be able to do that. It needs to be able to have ball skills like that and be able to handle the ball that well to be able to put a move on a defender. But you have to have some level of comfortability with handling the basketball at the NBA level, no matter what number you are on the floor, 1 through 5, it doesn't matter, I don't think. I mean, it matters probably more for 1 through 4 than it does for 5, but even still, I think that you're Miles Bridges, and I think you pretty much know you're not going to be a 5, because that's not your role. I don't think that's where Miles Bridges would fit anyways, but because of that, you have to know how to handle the basketball. You have to be comfortable with it. You need to have some level of skill there. And I'm not saying that he doesn't. I'm not saying he has none. But you can clearly tell with what he's done this season that he's not as comfortable doing that.
I think
you cannot put the games down to its final 10 seconds. I don't think that even Miles Bridges would want to be handling the basketball at that point, because I don't think that he would be as comfortable to do that, and certainly not being able to create a play off of that.
Miles Bridges, I feel like, would be more comfortable with the final shot. Let me stand here, you pass me the ball, and then I take a shot.
Yeah.
I'm not going to create. And I think the best way to put it is his perimeter skills, they're just not polished. Like, he's got some skills there, they're just not polished. And I think the best way to put it is, I just looked at NBADraft.net, and they put it perfectly. It's not a huge weakness that's going to bring him down to where he's undraftable, but the fact that they put classic tweener to where, and then they go on to say his NBA position remains a big question mark as he's severely undersized to play the post, so meaning you're undersized to be a 4 in the NBA, but you don't have the perimeter skills at this point to be what we want you to be on the outside. So really for Miles Bridges, I say it's got to come down to pick one. What do you want to be? What do you want to be at the next level? A post player because, you're undersized at that. They have him at 6'7", 230. I know that everyone, when you start talking sizes, everyone's got something different. That's what they have him as. Or are you going to say, hey, I'm going to work on those perimeter skills to be that guy for whatever team that drafts me at the next level?
I think you've got to be working on your perimeter skills. I think that if I'm Miles Bridges, that's what I'm doing. That's absolutely what I'm working on, because I think that he is undersized to be that again, like I said, definitely not a 5, and a 4 would really be pushing it. He's more of a perimeter guy. Especially when you look forward to the NBA, that's where he's got to be. But that's also why I think he's dropping on a lot of people's boards, because he is that tweener, and it's really hard to put a finger on a guy and say, okay, he's going to be right here. This is exactly where he's going to be, and blah, 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 and do everything like that when he's not at the size level of what you want for an NBA big guy. But he also doesn't have all the skills of being that solid perimeter player. So when you get that tweener, you're really at a crossroads, and you have a lot of question marks of how what do I want to say? How much of an impact does he really make at the next level as a starter? And that's the question right now. And again, I really hate to say it, because I really like Miles Bridges. I think he's a really good player. And again, you have a lot of really good college players that they don't necessarily translate to really good NBA players. But for Miles Bridges, I think, Ricky, I really do think that him staying another year in college has really hurt him, because we were not hearing this last year. This was not seen. This was really not affecting him at all or plaguing him at all. We didn't talk about him like this. We talked about him in the final segment, talking about how, man, he's going to be an impact player for a team. And right now we're just not getting that. Well,
and I want to move into kind of switch into the guy I had at 16 that people might question why he's so low in Colin Sexton, because when I was going through my big board, because obviously we're going to have to wait to see how high you have Colin Sexton, and spoiler alert, we have the guy that I had at 16, you have him in the similar range that I had the guy that you had at 16. You'll find out where that is later, but I just find that interesting. But with Sexton, maybe it was a little bit of it was the Trae Young to Colin Sexton that we talked about, that you guys could see on the channel if you guys want to. And for me, I want my point guard to be, if I'm drafting a point guard, I want him to be more like a Trae Young, more of like that, can shoot from the perimeter, can pass the ball, can get the ball involved, where like in today's NBA, I don't want a point guard that is just going to be a slasher. Is not just going to be a guy who slashes to the basket, gets some points, goes to the free throw line. You got to do more than that. And the thing with Colin Sexton that I think of is maybe a little bit is the compare to Trae Young, that he's not the assist guy like Trae Young is. He doesn't have not saying that he can't shoot the ball, but he's not a three-point shooter like Trae Young is, with Trae Young being the volume three-point shooter. Also, there are games where I look and I go, why are you turning the ball over so much? Like, there was a stretch where Kentucky, they lose by 10. He has 5 turnovers. The win against LSU, yeah, they blew him out, 4 turnovers in that one. Also, the 9-point loss to Missouri had 4 turnovers. LSU, again, had 5 turnovers in that game. And I don't want that from my point guard. I want a point guard who's going to take care of the ball, who can score on his own, but is going to get others involved also. That's what I want from the point. And maybe the 3-ball plays into it as well because of what kind of an NBA we're in right now.
You know who you just described?
Who?
Trae Young.
That's exactly who I described.
You just described Trae Young, but in the negative. Trae Young, I mean, did you see their, 8-game losing streak, 6-game losing streak? Turnovers after turnovers after turnovers. They lost those games because all they had been doing was relying on Trae Young. Trae Young realized that, and that's why his volume was so high. That's why he shot 17 threes a game and made 4 when they lost. That is Trae Young. What Colin Sexton brings is a little bit more stability. Colin Sexton brings more stability. He brings more efficiency. Trae Young brings you spark, excitement, but he brings you a sporadic type of game. And I think that he'll be good in the NBA? I do, because he's not going to be trying to handle a load like he is at Oklahoma. But what I want to say with Colin Sexton is that I think if this guy can continue to get to the free throw line the way that he does, and he can continue to be a consistent scorer the way that he's been a pretty consistent scorer throughout the season, I think if he translates that to the NBA, I think he's going to be a solid point guard. I think he's going to be a solid point guard in the NBA because he's going to be efficient. He's not going to turn the ball over that much. Because really, when you look at Sexton and you look at Young, and I know that we will compare those two because those are the 2 point guards that we talk about in this draft that we've really talked about all season long, I think Trae Young looks like he is more the turnover machine than Colin Sexton is.
And I want to correct myself really quick. Reading is hard. I was reading the wrong column. In 2 of those games I mentioned with Colin Sexton, the Kentucky game, he had 5 fouls, not 5 turnovers. The 5 turnovers came the next game against the number 12 Auburn Tigers. The LSU game where I said he has 5, he actually had 9 turnovers in that one. the Mizzou game, he only had 1. So I was reading the wrong column for some of those. But here's the thing I want to ask, and this will bring back in the Sexton-Young debate, because I don't think we had this aspect of a conversation when we talked about them. One of the big things I have heard about Trae Young, and I kind of believe with this Oklahoma team that I see right now, is all teams in the Big 12 had to do was say, all right, we're going to take you out of the game. Can your team beat us? We are going to swamp you. Can your team beat us? Can we almost say the same thing for Alabama on some sort of a scale, that if they take away Colin Sexton, Alabama's not as good of a team? Like if people in the SEC were targeting Trae Young like we saw in the Big 12, can we even use that argument for Trae Young? Because it can work for both of them, that they're that good that, hey, we limit this guy, take him out of the game, the team can't beat us.
Well, I think you could probably have said the same thing for LSU when Ben Simmons was on the team. I mean,
True.
When Ben Simmons didn't show up or just chose not to play on a night, LSU was certainly not going to be... Yeah, because he was bored and he just wanted to go to the NBA. I mean, you can't blame him, but you can. I think it's certainly one of those types of situations. I mean, the same can be said for a lot of different teams. When you take away their best player, you just wipe him off the table, and all you have left are crumbs, trying to move the ball around and score points, and their leader, their scoring leader, their floor leader is gone. Yeah, I mean it's much easier to then be able to beat that team and score on them. So I think that it's probably similar, but I don't know. I want to say that Alabama might have a couple more, I feel at least, in terms of, trying to track them a little bit throughout the season, outside of, Colin Sexton, is they may have had a little bit more to go on than Oklahoma did, because, I mean, the fact that Trae Young was shooting so many threes and just taking so many shots in general, it showed that clearly either he believed that no one else could do it, because they probably couldn't, or he just had that poor of decision-making. So I'd like to think that it's probably the first and not the second with Trae Young, but I know we're here on Colin Sexton, and I think that you talk about his assist numbers. There's really, outside of him and maybe one other guy on Alabama, what's his name, Petty or something like that, they don't have shooters. So to say that his assist numbers are down, I don't think is necessarily a reflection on him as an assist guy. I think it's more of a reflection on Alabama as a poor overall shooting team.
And the one thing that this is very small, it's not like, oh, because of this I had him at 16, but just one thing I don't like between the two, and I still don't like it. I think I mentioned this when we talked about Trae Young to Colin Sexton. It bugs me a little bit that you're going to the line for Trae Young goes to the line for about almost 9 attempts per game. Colin Sexton goes for about almost 8 per game. And Trae Young is shooting 85% from the line, almost 86%. And Colin Sexton is shooting 77% from the line. That's something, though, with me, any player that has a poor free throw percentage, and yes, 70% for me is poor, there is nobody in front of you.
Yeah.
You want to be an NBA player, you should make that shot with nobody in front of you. But like I said, that's not like one of the sole reasons that he's down at 16 for me. Last thing I want to mention, this is going into a guy that you've got a lot higher than I do, a guy that you wanted to talk about, actually. Tell me a little bit of what you like about Kyrie Thomas, the guard from Creighton.
Well, what I like about him, it doesn't really have a whole lot to do with his offense, but more to do with how much of an elite defender he is. And the reason why I have him in the spot that I do is because I feel like the NBA really is at a point, yes, it's an offensive-minded and offensive-geared league. There needs to be more defenders. There needs to be more guys who know how to run the floor and play defense and don't just allow the ball to be kicked up top with no one out there and be like, I wonder when he's going to shoot it. Let me turn around and wait for the ball to come into my hands. We need more defenders in the NBA, and guys like Kyrie Thomas are going to be valued higher because of that, I think. Now, could I be completely wrong? Yeah, and I probably am. But I really like him. I think he's a legitimate perimeter stopper defensively. He knows how to work the floor, and on defense, he really knows how to follow a guy. So I think that's going to be very much so valued, even though he does know how to play offensively and he can shoot the three well. I think that his defense is going to be what really gets people excited about him. It's what got me excited about him, and scouts as well, being able to report back to their teams. Defense. And for the NBA team that needs that defender, that defensive piece that's going to help put them into the playoffs or carry them from the playoffs to the finals, whatever it may be, that's your guy.
Well, and the guy, let me really look this up 2 seconds. I got to get a height comparison just to see if I'm in the right ballpark here with Kyrie Thomas, the guy that I want to compare what he can bring to an NBA team. You know what? He's actually taller, and no, he's not. He's shorter than this guy, and he's about a little bit. But the thing that I was thinking about, so he's about 4 inches shorter than the guy in the NBA that I'm thinking about. But you know who you were kind of describing to me, and as I was looking at Kyrie Thomas on my computer, you want to know who he reminded me of from the Golden State Warriors? Klay Thompson. A guy who, like, Kyrie Thomas is not going to be the guy you draft, obviously, to be the main guy on your team. He's not going to be the all-star on the well, it could be an all-star, maybe, but he's not going to be that guy that's like, he's our number one, he's the future, he's our LeBron James kind of player. He can be a guy that, hey, you know what? Let's put him at the 2. He'll be our defensive guy. Like, a team that drafts him, and the great thing about Kyrie Thomas, especially for me in the range that I have him, with 20, if I go off a tankathon the night that we're recording this on Monday, that means at 20, he's going to be drafted by, if he goes at 20, that'd be the Minnesota Timberwolves. Oh, Tom Thibodeau would love him. Tom Thibodeau would love a defensive stopper at the 2. But like any of the teams after that, San Antonio, playoff team, the Blazers, usually in the playoffs, the Celtics, playoff team, Warriors, playoff team. Like, there are some playoff teams that even the Bulls, I would love if the Bulls got him. At 25, they're sitting right now because the Pelicans are winning so much. But that's the thing I think of is defense is your calling card, but you're no slouch on offense.
No, he's not. And in 31 games this season has averaged 15.5 points per game. That's over 3 points better than what he did last season. And that was in 35 games with 34 games started. I mean, he's shooting over 50% from the floor, close to 55% from the field. That's really impressive. From 3, shooting 42.5%. His offensive numbers are really good, but his defense might be better.
No,
and I think that's what's going to make him shine and stand out to an NBA team. Because, again, I truly feel the NBA, as much as it's offensive, cannot forget that it needs to be able to play some defense to be able to win a championship. And I know that's cliche, and people are going to be like, oh, gosh, he said it. But seriously, they cannot get away from that too much. And going with Kyrie Thomas, whoever gets him is going to be one lucky bastard.
And for those of you guys on YouTube, don't be alarmed that you're seeing the logo right now. That's on me. Forgot to stop us so I could start a new thing on the camera. So we'll let this roll out with the logo until we get to the next segment. But yeah, you know, with Kyrie, the only thing that I wanted to ask you as a kind of final kibosh on him, the only negative that I can really see that's like, okay, maybe that's something we look at is, so he's got the defense. Like, the thing that's most impressive, he's 6'3", but he's got a wingspan of 6'10". He's got like 7 more inches on that wingspan, really long arms. Career 40% shooter from beyond the arc in 3. However, because he's 6'3", a little undersized for the shooting guard position, will that be enough of a weakness for teams to pass on him? Or will a team go, you know what, I don't care about that. He brings too much to the table, and he can be a guy we play at the 2, but we put him defensively on the number 1s for other teams like Klay Thompson does.
He has too much much in the positive category.
Too much potential.
To have a size overshadow it.
Yeah.
He's just got too many good things going for him and too much potential, like you said. That's for an NBA team to just go, nah, I don't think so. We're going to pass over him. They either are really, really set or really, really stupid.
Well, and this is where you guys come in. Let us know, what do you think of some of the guys we talked about? What do you think of some of the guys in our 16 to 25? And who would you have in your 16 to 25? Let us know down below in the comment section.